Growing up, I always thought my family was the definition of stable. My mom, soft-spoken and warm, had this way of making every space feel like home. My dad, he was the backbone. Stoic, wise, the kind of man people turned to when they didn't know what to do next. He wasn't overly affectionate, but you never doubted his love. He showed it in the little things, keeping the car running, paying attention to what groceries we were low on, walking quietly to avoid waking anyone. That was just him. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Enough to eat out once in a while. Enough to take those chaotic, laughter-filled road trips during school breaks. Enough to feel safe. That mattered. And then, like most kids do, I grew up. Left for college. Calls with my parents got shorter, more routine. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Nothing ever felt off, until it did. The first thing I noticed was how little my parents talked on the phone when I called. Usually, they took turns handing it off, like a relay race. But lately it was just Mom. She'd say Dad was busy, or tired, or not home, and when I asked, she'd change the subject. Still, I didn't think much of it. Until summer break. Mom had a last-minute work trip, 2 weeks overseas. It wasn't unusual. She managed international clients, and these things popped up. I was heading home anyway. It'd just be me and Dad. Honestly, I looked forward to it. It had been a while since we hung out, just the two of us. I thought maybe we'd catch a game, grill in the backyard, fall back into the easy rhythm we used to have. But the moment I stepped into the house, something felt different. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. The living room was clean, too clean. Like someone had scrubbed the life out of it. The scent of Mom's cinnamon oil diffuser was replaced by something sharp and artificial. Even Dad's hug felt brief. Like he was holding back. We sat down for dinner that night, takeout, not his usual home-cooked steak and potatoes, and I tried to shake off the feeling. He asked about my classes. I gave half-hearted answers. He nodded but didn't really listen. His eyes kept flicking to his phone, lighting up every few minutes. It buzzed again. He didn't pick it up, but he didn't silence it either. Everything good? I asked, pretending not to notice. Yeah, he said, clearing his throat. Just work stuff. But he didn't look at me when he said it. I smiled, nodded, let it go. But something had cracked. I didn't know it then, but that night would mark the beginning of a truth I wasn't ready to face. A truth that would change how I saw the man I once called my hero. And somewhere deep down I already knew. Everything wasn't fine. Visual. A quiet kitchen. Daylight through blinds. A man sipping coffee. A phone face down nearby. Narration. The next few days moved slowly. Dad and I barely spoke, not out of tension but out of habit. It was like we were roommates, cordial, distant, avoiding anything beneath the surface. Visual. Protagonist glancing at phone on the table, unread messages lighting up the screen. He kept his phone close. Always face down. Always locked. That in itself wasn't strange, but the frequency, it was constant. Buzzing at odd hours, followed by quick swipes and short replies. I noticed. I just wasn't sure what I was noticing yet. Visual. Dad walking away to take a call, lowering his voice, pacing slowly. One evening, I walked into the living room and caught the tail end of a call. He was standing by the window, phone to his ear, murmuring. When he saw me, he froze. He hung up too fast. Who was that? I asked. He blinked.
Work.
They needed a file. At 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday? Visual. Protagonist sitting alone in the living room, scrolling social media, then pausing on a woman's profile he doesn't recognize. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I wasn't snooping, at least, that's what I told myself. But something didn't sit right. I remembered the name I'd seen flash on his screen earlier, Celia. Not a colleague I'd ever heard of. Not family. Not a friend of Mom's. So I searched. And there she was. Her profile was public. Her last post? A photo of a man's hand on hers across a restaurant table. The caption? He always finds time for me. No face. No tags. But I'd know that wedding band anywhere. It was my father's hand. Visual. A slow zoom on the photo. Then a cut to protagonist sitting in silence, processing. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My throat dried up. My ears rang. This had to be a mistake. A coincidence. Maybe someone else with the same ring. But I knew better. The man who raised me, the one who taught me right from wrong, who sat me down at 13 and told me never to lie to the people you love, was lying to the one person who trusted him most. Visual. Dad enters the kitchen the next morning. Silence hangs heavy. I couldn't keep it in. "Who's Celia?" I asked. He froze. The coffee pot in his hand tilted slightly before he set it down. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the countertop. Then, quietly, "She's someone I've been seeing." Visual. A long pause between them. Unsaid words thick in the air. No excuses. No elaborate cover-up. Just the truth. And that truth hit harder than I ever imagined. Visual. Close-up on protagonist's face. Emotion rising. Cut to black. Narration. In that moment, I didn't feel like his child. I felt like a stranger, standing across from someone I never really knew. And deep down, I realized nothing would ever be the same again. Visual. Dimly lit kitchen. Morning. Silence. A cold cup of coffee sits untouched. Narration. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept looping the image of that photo. His hand. Her hand. That caption. Everything I believed about my father had cracked in half. I wasn't sure what was worse, what he did, or how easily he admitted it. Visual. Protagonist pacing the hallway. Tension in their movements. Dad sits on the couch, unreadable. The next morning, I didn't wait.
Why?
I asked. He looked up, eyes tired. Not defensive. Just tired. I didn't plan for it to happen, he said. But somewhere along the way, I felt like your mother, and I became roommates. We stopped talking. Stopped seeing each other. Visual. Flashback imagery. Silent dinners. Distant glances between parents. Narration. I wanted to scream. Tell him he should have tried harder. That a rough patch wasn't permission to cheat. But I didn't. I just stood there, listening to a man unravel his own integrity in slow motion. Visual. Dad leans forward, elbows on knees, wringing his hands. She made me feel alive, he said. Not better than your mother. Just seen. I stared at him, searching for the man I used to admire. You could have ended it, I said quietly. You could have talked to Mom. You didn't have to lie. He nodded. I know. Visual. A long, heavy pause. Tension visible even in stillness. Narration. No justifications. No blame. Just regret hanging between us like fog. Visual. Protagonist sits down across from him, eyes locked. Does Mom know? I asked. He shook his head. I was going to tell her, he said. I just didn't know how. I could barely look at him. This wasn't just a private affair. It was a betrayal of the family he built, the values he preached. The man who raised me on principles was breaking the very ones he taught. Visual, flashback-style montage. Young protagonist being taught life lessons by Dad. Always be honest. Respect others. Never lie. Narration. He told me once that truth always finds a way out. I guess he was right. Visual. Dad stands, waiting for a reaction. Protagonist doesn't move. I'm telling you this now, he said, because I don't want to lose you, too. And that hit different. Visual. Protagonist looking down. A beat. Then, firm eye contact. I'm not going to keep this secret for you, I said. If you don't tell her, I will. He closed his eyes. Breathed in. I understand. Visual. Cut to protagonist alone in their room, staring at the ceiling. Narration over a slow pan of quiet home. Narration. I didn't want to be in that position. I didn't want to be part of this story. But silence, I realized, was just another kind of betrayal. And if he wasn't going to do the right thing, I would.